Jimmy Page's musical journey had a major setback early on that forced him to reconsider a musical career altogether.
I just believed in what I was doing. I didn't take prisoners along the way, really.
Hello, music enthusiasts, welcome back. Today we're diving into the incredible story of the genius guitarist who almost never made it to rock icon status, the legendary Jimmy Page. Before he became the guitar god we all know and love, Jimmy Page's journey to musical greatness hit a setback that forced him to reconsider a musical career and set him on a different path. Believe it or not, he almost didn't become a musician at all. To understand the origins of this rock icon and how this setback that he had to overcome forced him to reconsider music as a career, let's rewind the clock to Jimmy's early years. Growing up in England, Page was not only learning to play the guitar and becoming a gifted musician, but he also had a great love of art and was an aspiring science student.
And you're just learning to play the guitar?
Yes, from a teacher.
From a teacher? Do you play anything except skiffle?
Yes, Spanish and dance, I think.
Do you as well? Can you move on? What are you going to do when you leave school? Take up skiffle?
No, I want to do, biological research.
Do you?
A young Jimmy Page, already showing tremendous signs of musical talent, began playing with a lot of bands near Epsom, where he grew up while deciding on his future path. He played with these bands, navigating a rocky road filled with surprises, including one that would really send him spiraling on his musical journey. Jimmy describes growing up playing the guitar. So when I grew up, there weren't many other guitarists. There was one other guitarist in my school who actually showed me the first chords that I learned, and I went on from there. I was bored, so I taught myself the guitar from listening to records, so obviously it was a very personal thing. When he was 14 and billed as James Page, he played in a group called Malcolm Austin and the Whirlwinds, playing Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis numbers. This band was short-lived, as Page soon found a drummer for a band he'd previously been playing in, and came up with a name for them, the Paramounts. The Paramounts played gigs around Epsom, once supporting a group who would later become Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. Page sometimes had difficulty finding other musicians with whom he could play on a regular basis, he explains. It wasn't as though there was an abundance. I used to play in many groups, anyone who could get a gig together, really. Later on, he would do stints backing recitals by beat poet Royston Ellis at the Mermaid Theatre between 1960 and 1961. Singer Red E. Lewis, who'd seen him playing with the Paramounts at the Contemporary Club in Epsom, and told his manager to ask Page to join his backing band, the Red Caps. Then after the departure of their guitarist, Page was asked by singer Neil Christian to join his band. Christian had seen a 15-year-old Page playing in a local hall. Jimmy Page's journey then took him to playing with Neil Christian and the Crusaders. He left secondary school at age 15 and began touring with the Crusaders. Now this wasn't Led Zeppelin, not by a long shot. It was a different era, a different sound, but it was a crucial part of Page's musical evolution. Jimmy Page began cutting his teeth playing in these local bands around Epsom and touring England with the Crusaders. As Jimmy navigated the challenging landscape of the music industry, he faced countless hurdles, but the most challenging came during his early touring days. Neil Christian and the Crusaders spent so much time in their touring van, an old ambulance, that Page started getting sick, he explains in Led Zeppelin, the Biography. All the travelling to one-nighter gigs made me ill. I used to get sick in the van. I remember we were driving to a Liverpool club once and the van broke down and we had to hitchhike. We didn't really have any money, so we ended up sleeping in this little room in the club in the middle of the desk chairs and the effing first aid cabinet. And it was really cold. I kept getting glandular fever. Because he was sick, Page had to spend weeks recovering in bed at his parents' house. This caused Page to miss multiple gigs with Neil Christian and the Crusaders. Glandular fever is an infection that can cause extreme fatigue, fever, flu-like, and a host of other symptoms. Have you ever had to do something that others were depending on you to do, but you are so sick that you can barely get up? It's a terrible feeling. Despite his love for music, Jimmy found himself repeatedly sidelined by his illness and was forced to abandon his band and tour to recover for 18 months at home. It was during this period of recovery that Page began second-guessing a career in music. The band replaced Page with Albert Lee. In addition to trying to regain his strength, Jimmy was getting restless, he remembers. The numbers we were doing were really out of character for the audiences that were coming to hear us play. It was just disheartening to go up to, say, Rushton or somewhere like that and find 10 people having a punch-up. In the end, it just didn't appear to be going anywhere. So I jacked it in. During this period of uncertainty and the setback of a relentless illness, Page decided to quit the band and join art school so he could have a break, and he used the time to recenter. Jimmy eventually went back to playing in clubs around his home and ended up getting noticed and invited to play on session tracks, His very first session song recorded, Diamonds by Jet Harris, debuted in January 1963. The single stunned nearly everyone by hitting #1 in the UK just a month later. It would go on to hold that position for 3 consecutive weeks. Almost overnight, Page became a heavily in-demand commodity in the studio world.
What's your professional ambition? Is it to be a guitarist all the time? Do you want to make your own records?
No, not necessarily. I'm very interested in art. I think I'd like to become an accomplished artist.
Rather than the guitarist?
Yes, possibly.
Is this a means to an end for you? Are you hoping to earn enough money through your guitar playing?
Yes.
The session work is where he really honed in on his craft, developing exceptional standards and work ethic, as he had to commute an hour from Epsom to London by train 5 to 6 days a week, working 10-hour days sometimes. Jimmy turned down the opportunity to join the Yardbirds twice during this period. But eventually, on the 3rd invite from Jeff Beck, Jimmy took up the offer after the bassist quit, and his musical career was underway. Back on track, he took his education and skills with him to the Yardbirds, and then onward to creating one of the most successful and loved bands of all time, Led Zeppelin. And the rest is rock history, as they say. Have you ever found yourself sidelined by a setback that was out of your control? Let this serve as inspiration to pick yourself up and find a path forward. Please like and leave a comment below.